Good evening and welcome to the January 24th, 2013 meeting of the Environmental Advisory Council at Radnor Township. My name is Josh Hilbert and I am going to be chairing today's meeting temporarily as the vice chair. And first order of business is to introduce our newest member, Sally Madison, who was appointed at the most recent Board of Commissioners meeting, if I remember correctly, which was about 2 weeks ago. And this is our first time getting to meet Sally. So welcome, Sally. And sure. And I was wondering if you might just give a couple sentences about your background and why you're interested in environmental matters. It doesn't have to be a speech or anything, but tell us about yourself a little.
Sure. I work as a lawyer. Actually, my day job is doing entertainment law, which is mainly involving contracts. But I have in the past worked for Clean Air Council on renewable energy and chemical safety issues. I've recently done volunteer work in the Conservation and Science Department at the Philadelphia Zoo. 2 springs ago, I volunteered at Chanticleer Garden, and I generally try to keep informed on environmental issues going back to when I was working full-time in the field. And I think the thing I'd say is of great interest to me is biodiversity, but really the whole ball of wax.
That's great, Sally. Could I, as you mentioned, you did some work with the Clean Air Council. That's really interesting. Could you what kind of stuff were they doing that you were helping with? Was it general projects or anything in particular?
I worked on, this was quite a while back. This was before there was a renewable portfolio standard in the state of Pennsylvania, so Clean Air Council was one of a number of groups working to try and get that going. And also, long before 9/11, when there was less concern about strikes at factories housing large amounts of different kinds of chemicals, Clean Air Council, along with other people, was working on trying to get information about chemical safety issues out to the public, because the way the law was set up under the Clean Air Act, really it was up to the public, people living near a facility, to find out what was there and try and talk with the facility owners to make sure it was as safe as possible. It was up to them. So it was basically education and outreach about chemical safety.
That's great. I've heard it's a good organization, and it's great to have somebody who's got some experience with them. So.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a great organization.
Well, thanks again for joining us, Sally, and it's good to meet you. And look forward to learn a little bit more about what you do. Although I did happen to Google your firm, and I saw that you have some interesting clients. A lot of famous, let's say, sports guys or athletes and. Entertainment, like singers and whatnot. Yeah. Pretty cool.
Pretty diverse bunch of people. Pretty interesting group.
Okay, well, so as it is at the beginning of each and every year, our next order of business is to elect officers for the coming calendar year of 2013. Do I have a nomination for chair and vice chair?
Yes, I would nominate Josh Hilbert for chair and Sloan Walker for vice chair.
Second?
Oh, sorry. Did I?
Sure. I suppose anybody can second. Yeah. I guess all in favor of the Josh Hilbert as chair and Sloan Walker as vice chair.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approved. Thank you very much. I accept.
Yeah.
Announcements. I have a couple announcements. Oh, yeah. Okay. I thought we did in opposite order. My bad. Review and approval of the last meeting's minutes. The last meeting was in November 2012. Can I have anybody, any additions, changes to those minutes? Can I get a approval of those minutes and somebody to?
Move approval.
Second?
Could I, were those in the packet? those
They,
were?
they were in Melissa's packet that she sent around for, I
Okay.
guess it was earlier this week.
Oh, okay, because I had one from October.
And there was one after that.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now to announcements. First thing I'd like to mention is that there's an electronics collection event coming up. It's going to be in Willows Park on Darby Paoli Road, and this is February 9th, so it's coming up shortly. And it's between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. And you can find out more information on the Radnor website, but I thought I'd mention that there was an interesting comment at the bottom there that said, due to new DEP regulations, Radnor Township will no longer be able to accept electronics on open truck. They have about 100 or so examples of accepted devices, meaning devices that they're going to accept at the electronics collection event on the website. But I'll note that it includes TVs, computers, air conditioners, vacuums, cell phones, cables. All those things I just mentioned, plus 90 more, are on the web page, and you should know that you are not allowed to put them in your regular garbage, which I thought was interesting. I would have just normally thrown out some coaxial cable, but apparently that's one of the things that they don't want to see on the regular pickups. So bring it to the electronics collection event February 9th. Next is the 8th Annual Delaware County Environmental Summit. It's on Saturday, February 16th from 8:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. And the topic will be emerging toxins. This is going to be at the John Hines Wildlife Refuge. This is down by the airport in Philadelphia. The confirmed speakers at the event are State House Representative Greg Vitale, and he'll be talking about Pennsylvania State House happenings. And there also will be a USGS presentation on pesticides in our waterways. There'll be additional presentations on pharmaceuticals, endocrine disruptors, and more, and they're asking you to register for free at the Delco Environmental website. The 2013 Environmental Community Service Award. This is a program being put on by the law firm of Manco Gold, Catcher and Fox, as well as Wawa and NBC 10. They're looking for 2 schools to be awarded a $5,000 honorarium to enhance their environmental programs. They're looking for school classes, clubs, teams. These are 6th to 12th grade students that currently have a worthwhile environmental community service school project demonstrating a connection to their community. They are asking that applicants complete and submit their application by Monday, March 4th. The application can be found at the law firm's website, which is mgkflaw.com. There is a Environmental Youth Leadership Conference. It is at the Pocono Environmental Education Center. And this is on March 15th and 16th, 2013. On their announcement, it says, "Attention teachers and students from Pennsylvania middle and high schools. Join us for a 2-day environmental leadership conference. We will also be attending workshops and presenting a poster session at the Pennsylvania Association of Environmental Educators conference, which is nearby. And students will participate in activities and have an opportunity to present some of their green solutions to each other, as well as other attendees. And there is much more information at the PAEE website, which is paee.net. And lastly, for my announcements, there is a Pennsylvania and New Jersey Sustainability Symposium 2013. This is being held on March 12th at Temple University. The description is, don't miss this spring's biggest Green Build 2013 host city event. As we've been talking about in the past, Philadelphia is hosting the DVBGC Green Build 2013 conference. It's a very big deal. And throughout this year, you're going to see a lot of events probably ramping up towards this conference. And this is one of the first ones I've seen. It says, now in its 3rd year, this event will bring together over 600 industry, university, and community leaders to share best practices, ask challenging questions, and provide cutting-edge information about sustainability in the Delaware Valley. Join a growing, diverse community of sustainability-minded individuals as we cover a wide range of topics such as green schools, the business model for sustainability, Philadelphia cultural and sports institutions, LEED, commercial real estate owners, tenants, electric vehicles, and much more. And you should go to the dvgbc.org website to learn more about that. And that's it for my announcements. Anybody else have any other announcements?
I just wanted to let folks know, I read an interesting announcement about 2 new Pennsylvania wind farms that have just recently gone online. There's one called Twin Ridges Wind Farm in Somerset County, which began making power December 21st of last year. It has 68 turbines that make enough electricity to power 33,000 homes each year. It's great for the local economy, delivering up to $223,000 annually to 4 townships where the turbines are located, and sending about $100,000 to 2 school districts. They're also they've hired 7 people. And the second wind farm in Pennsylvania started spinning. It's also the state's largest, and it's in Wyoming County. It's owned by BP Wind Energy. It has 88 wind turbines, enough to power 34,400 homes each year. 400 people worked on it, 10 to 15 permanent jobs. And Pennsylvania now has 1.2 gigawatts of installed wind capacity. Each gigawatt is a billion watts, and the 21 Pennsylvania wind farms can now produce enough electricity to power nearly 300,000 homes each year. So I thought that was all good news. Interesting that they're coming online, despite the fact that there are other power sources that are pretty inexpensive these days. I thought it was good news, and just wanted to share that.
Did you happen to note whether what percentage those figures were of our total electric production?
I don't see that, but I could try to dig that out.
Yeah, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, but it's those are pretty big numbers. I mean, 300,000 homes with wind power just in Pennsylvania. So, and it seems like it's still going up. So.
There's another announcement that just recently came out about the Department for Environmental Protection extending its alternative fuel vehicle rebate program. It's committing an additional $1.5 million following the program milestone of awarding 500 rebates in the amount of $3,500 for large battery system plug-in hybrid electric vehicles and battery electric vehicles. There is information about rebate applications and updated guidelines on the DEP's website at dep.state.pa.us, keyword alternative fuel vehicle rebates.
That's great news. It really is great news. That's Pennsylvania.
That's Pennsylvania, exactly, and that's great news because I know it was either running out or had run out. The federal one, I think, is continuing as well, so they can be combined up to 11,000 for certain types of cars. So that is great news.
Yeah, and the Philadelphia Auto Show is going on right now, and at the auto show, I wasn't there, but I heard that there are several nice-looking,
Right.
attractive-looking options for.
And VW has announced, and you may have seen that they're going to bring out in 2014 a plug-in hybrid diesel SUV with up to 80 plus miles per gallon. Be the first combination of diesel, which is very efficient, and plug-in hybrid. So that's pretty exciting.
Josh, I had one quick announcement. On Saturday is the annual meeting of the Delaware Valley, the Diary Creek Valley Association, sorry. And that will be at the Haverford Reserve at the Environmental Center there. If you haven't been there, it's a great opportunity to go. The program will have some interesting stuff for, you know, us and others in the Darby Creek watershed. There'll be a presentation by Josh Barber at EPA about the Superfund sites in and near the Heinz Refuge. And then there'll be a joint presentation on dam removal in the Darby Creek watershed. There are a couple of projects that are ongoing, and American Rivers is going to present the history of dam removal and the science around it, and then the procedure for removing the dams that they're working on. So the meeting is, that informational time is 9 through 1.
Can you remind us what the website is of the Darby Creek?
It's dcva.org.
dcva.org?
Mm-hmm. And I can forward this agenda to you, just so you all will have it.
And Josh, I've got 4, but these are not happening till March, April, and May. So I'm just going to mention that Chester Ridley Crum Watershed Association's got 4 different things happening in the next few months. And I can go into the details next month.
Well, our next meeting is late February, so is that going to be in time? Is that going to be in time to announce?
First one is March 10th. They're having a talk, restoring habitat, landscape structure, and health in our watersheds. They've got their spring meeting in early April, Earth Day event on April 20th, and then an annual stream cleanup on May 4th. So they're kind of the next watershed over, but a lot of good events they put on.
But they touch Radnor Township.
Oh, sure.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, let's give that another plug
Yep.
next month.
Yep.
Great. Any other announcements? Okay, the next order of business are our work group reports and discussion. And I will start off. The Radnor Green Team is our first point of business, and that I give you an update on that. I don't believe they have met since their first meeting, but the Radnor Green Team is scheduled to meet at the end of this month, in about a week, January 31st at 2 p.m. And they are going to, the team is going to listen to a presentation on sustainability as it relates to public policy. And I think that's wonderful. I think that's one of the things that we hoped the Green Team was going to do, would be to be champions of green public policy. And they're starting off with a great presentation, and I look to hear more. I look to hear what they've learned, and hopefully we can give you an update at the next meeting, and hopefully they'll have another one after that already scheduled. But we plan on the EAC plans on sending a liaison to these meetings. Ideally, we'd like to send one liaison to every meeting if we can, and I believe we had a show of hands at one point in time in terms of who was interested in, going to some of these meetings once in a while, and I don't believe we should be limited to that. So if anybody's ever interested in going to a Green Team meeting and being our liaison, speak up, and but let's always try to make sure we have somebody there. So over the next week, I'll send out an email to see if we can find anybody that can attend this meeting. They're during the day, I understand, it's a little tough, but if we can find somebody, that'd be great. Okay,
Josh, did you want me to mention that local government energy efficiency information in relation to the Green Team now or later on?
We can do it now, sure.
Okay. Well, I just think that it will be helpful for them to be made aware of some of the work that the American Council on Energy Efficiency, Energy Efficient Economy, ACEEE it's called, is providing to local governments on energy efficiency planning and policies. And the Sierra Club did a webinar with ACEEE on some of the materials they have, and it's really quite extensive. It's about things like retrofitting street lights, and that one of the nice things is they have examples of communities that have done some things, so it's a good way to sort of connect with communities that are, maybe a step ahead of us, but, that have good models. And they had some, there's some additional sustainability-oriented material on the ACEEE website. So whoever does go to the January 31st meeting, it would be a good thing for them to take this material with them, so I'll provide that.
Yeah, I saw that, Rob, and I thought it was very helpful. A lot of good detailed sources and information. I wonder, maybe would we just send it right over to Melissa as a first step, just as a preliminary?
Well,
or what's our info flow?
Yeah, it's a good question. Certainly, links are always good to send people, I mean, who are interested in this kind of stuff. But to make the best impact, Robin, what do you think? We ought to just have somebody at the meeting just talk about what's available on this website and what if make sure it gets to the right person.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to just point them in that direction. And then as a result of the webinar discussion, there was some additional mention of building performance. That's a whole issue for the township to explore, and there's some good contacts for that aren't in the webinar, but I can provide them to whoever is going to go. So I'm happy to do that.
There's no chance you can you? Well, we can talk about whether you could make it.
I can go, but I don't know if you were trying to just sort of limit it to one person attending.
I don't think that's really necessary. We sort of checked, and it seems like it's there's not a limited number of seats. It's I think maybe it's not everybody, but I think if we have a few folks who are interested in going, I think that seems like pretty welcome.
Okay, great. Thanks.
The next work group is sustainability, and on that we have our usual spot for Sloan's Water Sense EAC tip of the month. Do you happen to have one for us today?
I do, but as usual, I'm going to keep you in suspense for just a moment. I did want to give an update on the tax holiday resolution. And Sally, we passed a resolution here at the EAC, I think it was at the last meeting, in support of the concept of a tax holiday, a state tax holiday for WaterSense labeled appliances and other equipment, which is very water efficient. EPA labels certain things as WaterSense appliances. They can save up to 30% of water, and we passed that resolution in support of a tax holiday. It was modeled on. There have been successful tax holidays in a couple of states, including Virginia and Texas, and we talked about next steps, what might make sense, including reaching out to some of the other environmental groups. I've reached out to the Radnor Conservancy. They've looked at it. Their executive committee has supported this, which is great, and they're going to have a full board meeting next week and take it up and hopefully support it as well. I think we will also. I've reached out to the Pennsylvania Environmental Council, the coordinating group for EACs, to get their thoughts on other ways to reach out to people, see if others would support this, and got some good thoughts back, including the ability to share it with other EACs. The interesting idea came up of perhaps having, apparently other EACs have Facebook pages, which make it easy for folks to search and see what other people are up to on EACs. So I thought it would be as an interesting idea. Maybe we should explore. Apparently we'd need to check with the town solicitor to see what the rules of the road are in terms of doing a Facebook page, but I thought that was an interesting idea, and maybe one way that we could get something like this out and share the idea with other EACs to see if they're interested. So
Can you remind me what Kiet, who was our
That's right.
our contact at the PEC, what did he say about using PEC to get in touch with the other EAC groups?
He was encouraging. He said that he finds it a little challenging personally to know exactly what other EACs, all the EACs are up to. He was the one who suggested, hey, it's a lot easier for him to track what's happening out in the in the EAC landscape when an EAC has a Facebook page, because I guess it sort of just makes it very efficient to get the information out to people without him having to surf around. So I think it was in part to help him understand what's going on, and also, making it easier for us to see what other EACs are doing. So,
But in the meantime, is there any chance that he could just
yes,
blast out
he,
to all the EACs?
Yes,
Here's what Radnor's doing.
he's got various
Yeah.
blast email and things like that. So I didn't ask him directly to do that at this stage, and wanted to kind of pick his brain a little more broadly. But he said, he was encouraging on that. He also mentioned other groups that might want to help support this, a group Penn Environment, a group Penn Future, that he mentioned. So there may be other groups that would want to let people know about it and get the word out. So, but so we're making some progress, and I think I'll keep reporting back on where we are and what the next steps are. And let's see if I guess that was it. And in terms of the WaterSense tip is really a fact. They've got an interesting fact sheet up on the website, the EPA WaterSense website. They note that using WaterSense labeled faucets or faucet accessories can reduce a household's faucet use by more than 500 gallons annually, enough to do 14 loads of laundry. And they also mention the stat that I previously noted, that certain WaterSense labeled accessories can reduce excessive flow volumes by more than 30% without sacrificing performance. So good info about the WaterSense labeled products.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Moving on to liaison reports. I believe we have two. Start with you, Skip. Parks and Rec. What can you tell us?
There is an ordinance.
Or planning. I meant planning. I'm looking at Chris.
Actually, Parks and Rec was
Yeah?
very insightful.
Is that
Yeah,
appropriate?
Yeah.
Sorry.
There's a ordinance that is worked its way through planning at this point and is now, I believe, going to be considered at the February 11th meeting of the commissioners. It is a plan to create more open space and/or support existing park and rec spaces, or whether it's passive or active. The current form of it is that for each development of a residential unit that is 3 or more dwelling units, the developer can either donate, if the township wishes to accept, 1,440 square feet of open space and/or actual parkland. It could be attached to a trail. It's all sorts of possibilities. The statute's fairly broad, but 1,440 square feet per dwelling unit, or $3,307 as a fee in lieu of such dedication. In addition, commercial developments in which the project has to go through land development. This isn't just, putting on a new roof or something like that. So it's always land development, and technically 4,000 square feet of new building footprint would require the developer to either donate 2,500 square feet of land or $3,307 per each 4,000 square feet as a fee in lieu. If you extrapolate this to another thing that's been before us, the Biomed project of 800,000 square feet, if they just paid the fee in lieu, it would be a new fee never before collected by the township of $650,000. So that may sound like a lot, but for a 700,000 square foot building, it's less than $1 a foot. The greatest impacts are probably on residential developments, and I guess it's a little more appropriate that it's for a new residential development. But technically, Luella Court, which is my favorite example in these meetings, when it's converted from 25 apartments to 12 condos, it had to go through land development. Technically, it would have been liable for $40,000 in fees, even though the impact is arguably reduced. They might have sought a waiver from the fee because the impact is reduced. The funds do not have to be spent at once, and they can be spent to refurbish existing parkland. It contrasts with adjacent municipalities. Tredyffrin does it on developments of 20 dwelling units or more, and not at all underneath that, and on commercial developments involving 5 acres of ground or more, and not on developments less than that. Lower Merion does not assess against commercial developments at all, and does it on 4 units or more, and it's $2,500 a unit, and Upper Merion does not have any ordinance like this. So it was a mixed vote at planning. Not everybody loved it the way it is, but the majority voted to send it on to the commissioners approving it. And February 11th, if you want to go to the meeting, that's when it'll be up.
That's interesting. The biomed project, that's a huge number. What would be the alternative in terms of open space?
That, the fee, you mean?
Yeah, as an alternative to the $650,000, you said there's also a chance that they could dedicate some space.
Right, they could. I guess it divides 700,000 square feet by 4.
By 4,000?
Yeah.
Like that? Okay.
And I guess that's about, what, 17 or 1,800 units? So I'd have to do it, like, get out my Apple and figure it out.
Yeah,
But it would be a lot of ground. And so sometimes a developer, I think, can request a decline to do such a donation. Sometimes it doesn't fit. Sometimes it would make the project impossible to do. I think there's a lot of discussion that will go on going forward between developers and the township because of this. It's also interesting with the huge amount of development that's occurring and about to occur on all the colleges and high schools. This applies to them as well.
Wow.
So if you build a 1,000-room dorm, although nowadays they're suites with common areas, but even if it's 200, that's 200 residential units. And it's either the fee or the donation of ground.
Sounds like it should be an interesting meeting.
I do recommend, if you, at a minimum, watch it and if possible, attend. Speaking of PI, that endless process continues. And there'll be another meeting on, I think it's the 6th, to consider the ordinance in its latest form again. There's going to be discussion, I believe this time, about the height of buildings in the center of campus in return for 500-foot setbacks and donations of ground. And this is apropos for EAC and the general public as well. So I recommend you look at that one too.
Well,
and if you can go to that, Son, you have some history with
Yeah.
Charlie already.
Yeah. Is your understanding that they have preserved the incentives that we had?
Well, think about the irony of this. The current PI draft has provision to, if you want to have go over the current height of 38 feet on a structure, the current proposal suggests that you have to donate 3 acres of ground to go to a 4th story. And if you want to go to the 5th story, which is in the current draft, and not everyone supports 5th, let alone 4th, but if you go to a 5th story, it would have to be another 3 acres of ground in a permanent conservation easement, and not in a suitable location, and not, the middle of a stream, et cetera, et cetera. But imagine that if you want to build a building in the center of campus that's 58 feet tall, you have to carve out 6 acres of ground in the current draft, and depending, as I read the Park and Rec thing, donate additional ground or pay fee in lieu to develop that, whether it's commercial, classrooms, or an entertainment center, or dorms. So it makes it more difficult to develop in Radnor, but there'll be lots of land and money coming in terms of open space. Of course, the trade-off is that, some things won't ever happen, but maybe that's okay too.
Isn't that the idea of this, just to stop all development? Is that what it is? Well, I appreciate that, but.
Can
well,
I just ask on that point, I mean, isn't part of the rationale trying to encourage institutions to concentrate the density in the interior of their property as opposed to on the edge?
Well, the current largest building that you can build that's truly a structure, and curiously, the new parking garage at Cabrini is in the old language, so it's not a structure because it's a parking garage. You have to trust me. So that can be 400 and 500 feet long. Right now, I think the largest footprint is 165 feet on a side of a building, so that the largest three-story building that you can possibly build is 25,000 square feet. If this goes through, they proposed a larger building footprint, I think 300 square feet or, something like that. And if it's 5 stories, you can suddenly build a 200,000 square foot building. So even if you say you're putting it in the center of campus, the people that use these buildings leave and they drive cars. So the impact on the community from a view shed standpoint is better. From an environmental and carbon footprint standpoint is better because tall buildings are better. Probably more open space is available in and around the building, not to mention the dedicated ground for conservation easements. But when they leave, they get on our little roads and clog them up. So the density argument means that you're basically pressing it into the center of the campus, and then the impacts are still felt outside the campus. So it's a balance. I'm not saying that this will just pass as is or not. I think some of this discussion was triggered by all the development that's going on now.
Can you briefly give an update on the Cabrini garage?
We have approved it in 2 locations. It's split in half. The existing entrances and exits remain the same. And hypothetically, because they've torn down some things, theoretically, enrollment won't appreciably go up or might go up 50 to 100 students at tops. So Cabrini's approach is to green the center of their campus and move it to the edge as much as they can. And they're still going to do that, and they're able to do that under the old ordinance. Villanova, we're going to see Villanova on the first, I guess it's Monday of February, for the 4th. Or maybe it's the 3rd. I'll have to look at my calendar. And that'll be the big discussion. It's been discussed a lot in the township, but it's never actually technically been before planning. And now it will be. And it's in the form of an ordinance as opposed to an actual big plan. Because it's easier to move all the variances out by ordinance first and then try to make the plan fit under the new overlay district.
Okay, so that's the big one then, early February.
Yeah, that's the only thing on our agenda that night.
I bet.
I don't think anybody else wanted to be on, if they were first.
Yeah, that's a long one. Thanks, Skip. Chris, you want to give your Parks and Rec?
We're going to switch next month.
Yes. You have some overlapping, obviously you have some overlapping, interests, for sure, listening to that last bit.
We do. Parks and Rec, we had a meeting 2 weeks ago on January 10th. The 2 major items of discussion there were from the Willows project. Parks and Rec was asked to vet the 9 proposals and 8 presentations that were made to us with some public comment back in November, and make recommendations for those proposals we saw fit to move on to the Board of Commissioners for their review, further vetting, and inclusion in public comments. We recommended 4 of those proposals to the Board of Commissioners, and I believe that next week, Monday or Tuesday, I'm not sure which date, the Board of Commissioners has their first meeting that they'll be discussing those proposals and taking public comment on all that. So that process is now out of the hands of Parks and Rec and with the Board of Commissioners.
Can you say which ones you sent on, or highlight, maybe?
Yes, I think. I don't know if I bought all of that with me, Sally. There was, the board had provided us with a list of criteria for these proposals. The gist of it was, I'm going to try and go by memory, one, that it would not interrupt any of the land in and around the willows, that the ponds and the hills and the land, the trails would all stay and remain as is for public use. Secondly, that they would require that the plan would take away the expenses from the township for maintaining the Willows Mansion itself, and avoid any future costs we might have to update or provide upkeep on that facility. And then the third major thing was to try and get a proposal that would help the Willows become a source of income for the township, as opposed to a source of expenses. My recollections of the proposals was there was only one proposal, which was submitted by Jeremy Miller Caterers, that accomplished all of those objectives. They proposed to buy or lease the mansion, to provide the needed improvements to the facility, and then to run it as mostly a wedding or an event venue there, and share some of the income on that facility with the township. The other three proposals that we sent up for further review, two of them included some development of the property, which was against one of the items that we talked about, and the third one was kind of a private-public partnership to use the facility and the grounds for more natural growing of vegetables and things like that, and to create an atmosphere there where the public could enjoy that venue and go in and grow things, as well as provide some kind of a farm slash eating type of environment there. And so the proposals, some of them were more developed than others, but those are the four that we sent up to the commissioners, and they matched what the township manager had also recommended to the commissioners being sent up. So that's where that is now. I think the meeting being held next week will be the first step in the board and the public, further vetting those ideas and proposals. I don't think there's a perfect solution, quite honestly, to what's going to happen up there, but the process, is underway.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. That's very helpful to see where we are. There was one proposal that seemed to meet all three of those criteria. Is it fair to say that one would seem to be the one that would be the leading candidate, or is it hard to say because maybe it's not as feasible from a financial standpoint, or what's your sense in terms of? I mean, it's the one that sounds like it met all the requests.
It did, but I think, Sloan, it's way too early in the process to say there's a leader in the clubhouse just because it met some of the criteria. I think they've got a lot of work ahead of them, and I think they've got a lot of comments from the public that are going to be important to how this all plays out. And even if they do like that one proposal, I think that it'll have to be massaged and improved to meet with what their needs will be.
Okay. So the process going forward sounds like it to the board of commissioners?
Yeah, my understanding of the process is that the board will now run with this process, and it could possibly be that when they get to an end line of what they like and what they're going to recommend and possibly move forward on, it could come back down to another committee for oversight on that. possibly back to Parks and Rec, depending on what they do with the facility up there. Could go to planning, et cetera. So I think it's a process. It's going to take some time, and we probably won't know where things stand for another 2-3 months.
Okay. Is there a role, do you think, for the EAC on this, other than you've been very helpful in terms of keeping us posted? Is there?
I don't think yet. I think that if we see that there is further interest from the board and/or the public for one of the proposals, of the two proposals that had real development happening there, one of them would build 28 homes at different places on the Willows Tract, and tasteful homes, I guess is how they put it. And another was but that proposal also was going to offer to give the township other property, equal amount of property, elsewhere in the township. And then the second one was a group that wanted to build a hotel at a certain site on the property. So I think that if development looks like it's going to be an area that the township is going to go in, whether it's the Board of Commissioners and or the public to support it, then I think the EAC needs to get involved and understand what the impact's going to be to that beautiful park there.
Yeah.
And trails.
Well, please do, as you have, keep us posted, and if it seems like it's gotten to the point where it would make sense for us to weigh in, it'd be great to know.
And then the only second thing that we did at that meeting was we approved the recommended fee schedule for public use, not just Radnor, but outside public use of Radnor Township facilities and fields, et cetera. Softball teams that want to rent fields, and exercise guys that want to hold classes there and things like that. So we put a fee schedule in place to make sure that we could get some income back for when that happens.
Good.
And that's it from Parks and Rec.
Thanks, Chris. That's it for liaison reports. We don't have our Board of Health liaison here. Actually, it's been quite a while since I've seen a Board of Health liaison at one of our meetings. If I remember correctly, it might have been in the middle of last year or so. Maybe I'll reach out to them to find out if, we do. Kelly Doyle is our liaison. I'm just curious as to whether she's still the liaison or whether there's a new one. Well, I'll reach out to them. Moving on to old business. I wanted Robin, I believe, were you going to speak about the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission greenhouse gas inventory for us?
It's a very short update. They had a meeting on the 18th of December. They're a little bit backed up with pulling the inventory together. So I don't have a new date on when they will be coming forward with the inventory, but it'll be relatively soon. And the one thing of note, there's a lot to note in it, but they are really seeking to make this document much more useful, not just as a look back, but as a, sort of examples of what kinds of initiatives are being undertaken by, public, private, different agents in the Delaware Valley. So that will be very useful. And also for Radnor Township's purposes, there's been some refinement in the methodologies for inventorying some of the emission sources. So when Radnor goes to do a sort of an update of our inventory, there'll be some finer grained tools to use. So that'll be useful. That's really all I have.
So can you remind us what calendar year is this most recent?
It's 2010.
It's 2010. So the most recent one that they've completed is 2005. We have seen that one, right? And now they're just wrapping up the 2010 inventory
that's
now.
right. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Great.
But I think some of the examples will be probably even more recent than 2010. Some of the examples they'll be using to profile just some little short little vignettes about projects.
Okay, great. Any other old business?
Josh, I've got a couple things. I guess this is as good a place as anywhere to do them. I've been in contact with Steve Norsini, the Public Works Director, and we're going to get started again on this Cowan Park Rain Garden project. Sort of fizzled out at the end of last year, and I think this is a better time for it to get this thing planted in the spring when people are looking for a reason to get outside, and then you have a nice full growing season for these things to get established, and then they can withstand the first winter. So I'm going to start working on that with him. He's looking, he believes he can cover most of the costs of that just under his operational budget. I'm going to be talking with my friends at Chanticleer again and seeing if we can get some plants from them for this project. And then apparently there's a Friends of Cowan Park group, so I think that'll be an excellent group to get involved in the planting, and then possibly even, sort of that first season of maintenance when you want to just stay on top of the things that the plants are surviving. So that's one thing. The second thing, I sent everyone here an email about it, is the next round of WREN grants, which is the Water Resources Education Network. I believe, and I'm just recalling now by memory, I think the deadline is March 22nd. Actually, Sally and I had a conversation, and we had submitted last year to do a rain garden outside here at the Township building, and put on a workshop and so on. And Sally raised a good point, like, is this, they just did this in Garrett Hill. They got a grant for it last year, and they've built a great rain garden at Macrone Park, and they've had the workshops, and we're just wondering, are we doing the exact same thing again in Radnor Township? So I want to make a call to Wren and have a conversation about that. Another idea that I've had, and that I also spoke with Steve Norsini about, is what are called either basin retrofits or basin naturalization. And this is going to sort of the old school detention basin. It's just this lawn hole in the ground. And, it needs to be mowed. It needs to have herbicides and pesticides applied to it. And so instead of that, you plant native vegetation in these things. You can do some modifications to the outlet structure so that they're actually controlling the high frequency storms, which is sort of counterintuitively, that's more destructive to the streams than the big 100-year events. So Steve's all for it. He loves the idea. One of the issues is that pretty much all the detention basins in the township are privately owned, typically by a homeowners association. And so I want to have a conversation with Wren also. Kiet at Peck, he was on our team last year, partner on our grant application last year. He's ready to be on board for something this year, and I know they do talks on basin naturalization. So I'm sure we can get him involved. The tricky part is to do an actual, pilot study or something and do this. You need an engineer to design this and sign off on that. And I could do that, but I can't take on that liability personally, just because of potential downstream impacts to people. So I just want to have a few more conversations with Peck, with Wren, and see if that's maybe a better route to go with a possible grant application.
A good source for perhaps older retention basins might be some of the institutions who might be more willing to be creative and thoughtful.
Right. He mentioned that. He also mentioned Radnor Corporate Center apparently has a pretty good sized thing. So, one of the things that can be an obstacle is, a naturalized basin. It can be pretty shaggy looking. It's native vegetation. I mean, the great thing is it creates wildlife habitat, but it can be kind of shaggy looking. And, if you're in a development of multi-million-dollar homes, is that acceptable to the residents there? But I like the idea of having a series of workshops where you invite HOA representatives, and the upside is that you don't have to mow this thing every 2 weeks in the summer, and you don't have to buy chemicals to keep weeds down and so on.
I'm
There's
sure
still a
that-
certain amount of maintenance that's required, but
Yeah,
it's
there's
just a
other
much more
upsides, I'm
natural
sure.
system.
Yeah. Some people might prefer that.
Yeah.
Like me,
Yeah.
over a lawn, especially in a retention basin, which is not exactly like a ball field. You know, it's not like you can play soccer. in or
And the
anything.
other thing that can happen in these old basins, just as they settle, is you do just get puddles of water forming, and that's, mosquito breeding. And geese. And so, natural plantings can cut down on that ponded water because you have more plants that are soaking this up. And plus you're bringing in birds that are going to eat the mosquitoes. So,
It would be a wonderful educational opportunity to just help the homeowners, see an increased diversity of birds and all the.
well, I like to think that as, we all become sort of more environmentally enlightened, that people would see that as an amenity of a development that they would move into.
And
Right? That it could be sort of touted as a bonus of the development.
And signage always helps with this kind of stuff. Educational signage and part of a REN grant. Are you suggesting that that it might be possible to apply for a REN grant to actually do the retrofit, or is this just for educational?
Well, I don't know if you're going to find an engineer that'll do that for under $5,000, but that's the thing is and I would say if all we're going to do is landscape one, then I think it's doable. But if we're talking about modifying the way this functions to provide, functions hydraulically to provide a better benefit, you need to get an engineer involved, and because it's stormwater and there's potential downstream impacts, it's a liability issue that.
The township owns one or two as well.
Mhm.
One that's been in the news quite a lot, the North Wayne Park has one. Just throwing that out there. But that's very interesting. That's great. I think it's a great application
Yeah.
for the
So
rent.
let me make a few more phone calls. One thing that I have the Garrett Hills application last year. They were nice enough to share that with me, and we had three partners. It was it was us, Public Works, Pennsylvania Environmental Council, and Chanticleer, and Garrett Hill had the Township, the Garrett Hill Community Enhancement Trust, Eastern University, Villanova University, Delaware Riverkeeper, Chanticleer, a Boy Scout troop, and the library involved. So I need to find out, is that how you get your grant? Because, the REN, one of the mission statements, if you will, of REN is to form these community partnerships. So maybe part of our thing is we didn't have enough coverage there. But anyway, if anyone's looking to take that on or help me with it, I'd appreciate the help. I kind of want to stay focused on this Cowan Park and really make sure this happens this time around. So I'll just keep updating people with emails as things happen there.
Great.
And we'll see if there's a good place for someone to jump in.
Thanks, Dan.
Yep.
Is there any other old business? Any new business? There's no public comment. So I guess we'll adjourn our meeting. Thanks.